Hello again, YouTube. It's Skylar. Welcome back to my face. And in today's video, I'm going to be discussing how to overcome self-doubt. Before we get into it, I did want to say thank you to all of the new people that have subscribed recently within the past month and a half. I haven't made a video since then, and I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that did subscribe and has watched my videos. I have been very busy with some personal issues and things regarding moving and stuff, which I'll talk a little bit more in depth at the end of the video. So if you'd like to hear more about that, just stick around till the end of the video. Also, if you haven't already, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content. I will be making videos regularly again, and this is sort of the introduction to a new series of videos that I'll be making. So without further ado, let's get into it. So what do I mean when I talk about overcoming self-doubt? Well, through the lens of being trans, it can mean overcoming what's known as imposter syndrome, which is a very common term used in the trans community when people who are newly aware of the fact that they're trans tend to be a little more apprehensive about the idea of that they are trans, and so they really get kind of upset about the idea that, well, am I really trans? Am I not trans? Am I confused? And so that can play into a lot of things that come into self-doubt. Now, if you've watched other videos on my channel, you'll know that being trans is just a natural and inherent part of the human condition, something that cannot be changed or altered. It's just a facet of a person's being, in the same way that being left-handed is. And so you can't really change the fact that you're trans if that is what you are. But sometimes, psychologically, people tend to self-doubt themselves in much the same way as somebody entering a new profession would tend to think, well, am I really a doctor? Or am I really a jeweler? Or, you know, any kind of number of things where people would have doubts as to whether the authenticity of themselves, because when viewed from the lens of yourself, it's difficult to make a distinction when you see other people doing things and see other people in society and just assume that, oh, well, they have it all figured out and I don't, which actually really isn't true. Actually, most people just genuinely are kind of stumbling around through life, and we all kind of just have a general idea of where we want to go, but as most people know, plans don't usually always go the way that you intend them to be. You could think about plans that you might have had 10, 15 years ago, and then look at how your life is now. Regardless of what's happened since then, you probably would say that things typically haven't gone exactly the way that you anticipated. And that's totally fine. That's part of being human. But when it comes to things like self-identity and being trans, it's important to know that you should just trust yourself. You don't need to think about cues from other people and seeing if you have to fit a certain mold or a certain model, or, well, if I act and do this certain way, but and then I don't do these other things, well, then I guess I must not be trans. Well, that's not necessarily true, because even stereotypes, in the same sense that we use in a negative connotation for others, we can apply those to ourselves in a self-defeating manner. And it's really important to remember that not every trans person is exactly the same, just as no person is exactly the same. In fact, every single trans person is completely different from every other trans person, just like every human is different from every other human. So if you're wondering, am I trans, or you've started the process and you're having these self-doubts, it's important to remember that you're not alone, and that part of being trans is overcoming and trusting yourself through the process, and knowing that if you truly feel that this is who you are, then the destination is not as important as the journey. And it's really important to remember that, because even though I'm as late into my transition as I am, I'm going on almost a decade since I started HRT, I still sometimes struggle with this. And it's not uncommon for people that have been in transition as long as I have to still have some lingering self-doubts of, am I pretty enough? Am I, you can insert anything. And it doesn't really matter, because if you feel like you're a woman, if you feel like you're trans, if you feel like you're a man, then you are. If you have that conviction, that's your identity. That is who you are. If you feel non-binary, then you are non-binary. So society needs to start getting past having to, oh, well, if I tick this box and this box and this box, only then, the gates will open and I can finally label myself as trans. I would say label yourself as a human being. I use the term trans because it's the thing that I identify as. Transitioned into female. So I consider myself transgender. But that doesn't mean that everybody needs to apply that same label. That's just one way of describing a human experience, when there's so many different other ways of explaining that. So this comes back to, in general, life, when you have any kinds of doubts. If you're worried, am I good enough at my job? Do I really think that I'm going to be able to write that book? Insert any number of things that you may question yourself on, and then ask yourself, is the self-doubt what's going to stop me from pursuing the goal? And if the answer is yes, I think it's worth looking in and seeing if maybe overcoming that self-doubt will help get you to a place where you can be happier and achieve a life goal satisfaction that you desire. Because for the longest time, I always said I wanted to go hike a mountain. But I'll never achieve that until I actually hike a mountain. I'll only have the idea and the self-doubt that, oh, well, I'm not strong enough, I'm not physically capable of, I'm going to get lost in the woods or something like that. And I'm just using that as a general analogy, but it's the same idea. You only achieve goals by pursuing them in the first place, and you only pursue goals in the first place by first overcoming all the self-doubt. And so getting past that barrier will just help you progress in life better. And it really just comes down to, again, self-trust. You have to trust yourself to make a decision on something, and know that that's going to be the right decision for you, because that's really what you want. So I hope that was a little helpful and informative. Again, I'm going to be making a whole series of videos. I've been extremely busy. Getting back to the point I made earlier in the video, I did have to move recently, which was a huge ordeal for me because it was a little unexpected, and I had an entire household of stuff that I had to move within a very relatively short amount of time, and that was extremely stressful. And so, and then when I moved into my location that I am now, I was having internet issues for the first couple weeks, and so I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to upload, and so I was dealing with that, and then just life in general, and trying to juggle 3 different jobs. I do own my own business, so I have to, and it's just, there's a lot of moving pieces where it just gets really challenging, and so I apologize for not uploading a video for as long as I have. I will be making regular video uploads here going forward. I just kind of had to settle down a little bit first because I did get a little bit burnt out. And if you watched my video on getting burnt out, you'll know that it's important to hit the brakes and kind of take a step back whenever you feel like you're getting overloaded, so that you don't go down a rabbit hole and then end up not making a video for 6 years like I did before. So a 1.5 month break is a pretty substantial amount of time, but nowhere near 6.5 years. So yeah, self-care is so important. Always take care of yourself. And with that said, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content. And I'll see you guys all in the next video. Remember, you matter. You are important. You are not alone. And this world is better because you are in it. Have a wonderful day.